right. So we're going to jump right into our next presentation.
Yeah.
Designing a Koha user experience, and this is Kellie Stevens from McKinney Public Library System. Thank you, Kellie.
So hi, my name is Kellie. Like you said, I'm from McKinney Public Library System in McKinney, Texas. And I started on the systems team back in 2019. I was coming from the private sector. So this is the first time I was introduced to any kind of open source network. And I quickly found how much I preferred it just because of how expandable and customizable it is through my favorite things, which are front-end languages. So yeah, and one of the first things I was assigned was the self-checkout module. So at the time we had this beta model on our circulation desk next to our other standalone 3M models that we already had. So we were kind of trying this out with patrons to see how they liked it. And we had the very basic version running already. So yeah, my job was to come in and use my design background to customize this thing and really get it doing stuff that it wasn't already doing. We wanted to customize it to perform certain functions that you might not see on a standard checkout. So, yeah. So yeah. So why would we want to develop our own? So one, it's a lot cheaper to do it this way. So your self-checkouts from a third party might cost you somewhere between $15,000 and $24,000, but we got the cost way down by scrapping together our own hardware and using the free Koha model. So not to mention, you save a lot of time and money on reps giving out to maintenance. So anytime something breaks, you have in-house people working on that. Like I mentioned before, we wanted to perform certain functions. So we had ideas to expand the content of it to include ads for our programming, as well as some other little fun bells and whistles along the way. I want to mention this is not something you're going to see a lot of highly customized stuff. It's not something that we did within a couple months. This has been years that we've been rolling out changes on this. So it's been fun. It's been a good process. Another reason we want to develop our own is because of the in-house maintenance. Like I mentioned, it cuts down on the costs, but also we could do fun stuff that you wouldn't think about until you're interacting with patrons and getting their feedback and seeing what they might prefer or what's confusing them and how you can tweak that to make it a better experience for them. It was fully self-service, so patrons get to decide whether or not they interact with us. Some people just want to come grab their holds, check out and leave. It also frees up staff that are at the front to answer bigger questions on the floor. So not just processing checkouts. If someone has problems with their account, then they can find down and stuff them for that. Or if they have trouble finding something, we can spend more time with those patrons. Another reason is because it's branded to our system. So where you might pay a lot of money just to add a logo, we were able to not only add the logo, but to make this look and feel like us without paying a whole bunch of money. So you'll see our branding involved in this too, which I think strengthens our image as a library and also makes it super recognizable as what this thing is doing. You're very clear on what that station is and how to go and interact with it. And last but not least, the support from an open source community. So without Bywater to back this up, I think I would have been scared that I might break something. But knowing that I could always put in a ticket or reach out on Slack if I had any troubles or go check Bugzilla if something was going wrong, there's a lot of comfort behind that. So this is what you're going to see out of the box with the module. Up at the top left, it's basically what you would do when you're logging into your staff side already, but each self-checkout system is going to have their own user attached to it. So we have about 5 stations at our John and Judy Gay location and about 4 at Hall. So each of those units has their own Koha staff member attached to it. So each day we'll go refresh our machines in the morning, and we have this auto saved already in Google. So we just have to hit login and it's up and running all day, every day. So that also helps later on whenever you're running stats and stuff to see how each one's performing. So it's really nice that they each have their own user. Right here in the yellow, that's what you're going to see on the front end. So out of the box, you get that input bar up at the top that says, please enter your card number. So that's the first step of the checkout. Whenever you enter or scan your card number, then it will load that checkout screen on the next page. So this is, again, very similar to what you're already doing on the staff side, but instead it's in the OPAC and patron facing. And then that's where all the magic happens right there. So I'm gonna say most of what I did was HTML and CSS, but any of the fun like pop-ups and like any bells and whistles is all JavaScript. So a lot of power behind it. And then this is what our page looked like when I met it. So this was the beta page that we already had running. So already a lot of customizations. If you guys wandered around earlier, you might have seen they have a couple self-checkout units here. So you will see that all it really is just that please enter your card number and then submit. Anything else here is editable HTML. So what we had was kind of some instructional stuff, how to use it. And that part will stay the same as you move through the process. But I actually ended up wiping this once we had kind of a plan. We talked about making this more of a web app. So I had that in my mind, of how to move it forward in the design process. One thing we wanted to do was flip it vertical. So all this one is in horizontal desktop mode. We got those fancy little pivot monitors, so that you can make it vertical. That makes it stand out better as a kiosk and not just another lab computer or something like that. So that was one challenge there. The other, like I mentioned, is that our director wanted us to add the ads in there. So what we have for our ads is kind of preset. Our marketing department supplies those for us. So the dimensions and all that are what they are. So pivoting that helped kind of free up some room to squeeze in the ads a little bit better. Yeah, so this is what you're going to add on top of the koha module itself. So what we have here is that vertical touchscreen monitor. So we didn't want any keyboards, mice, or anything like that cluttering up the desk. So it was all touchscreen with that little thing that you can go vertical. Mounted on the back of each of them is a mini PC. So you can tug around all the wires. Nothing is mucking up the desk. Next to that, we got a 3D barcode scanner. So that will capture library cards and our digital barcodes, which David and I will talk about more tomorrow. That's where we're all headed. And then, of course, your RFID scanner. So again, very, very similar to what you already have on the staff side, but the patron gets to drive on their own. So put it all together, and this is what you get. So it looks a little different now. One thing I want to point out is that language change at the top. So before where it said, please enter your barcode, I went in with CSS and rephrased that a little bit so that it's more of the process as you're moving forward. So again, we're thinking about this as more of an experience instead of the checkout burden on the patrons. It kind of holds hand holding a little bit. So that's one thing I did. You'll see we also got the ads. So these are about 10 slides, 10 seconds apart. At first, this was HTML and JavaScript, just automating through images. But since then, we've changed it to an iframe, which is running Google Slides. And that allowed us to involve our programming department who gets those images first. So their hands are now in this project as well. And they can run all the Google Slides changes on the back end without even having to touch Koha admin stuff, which is really nice. Kiosk mode. We are running this in Google Chrome in kiosk mode. So you'll notice where before there was that little URL bar, you're not going to see that anymore. We wanted to trap the patrons for the most part in this, so they're not getting into the Koha OPAC or the internet. And so that this is basically just a stagnant web app all day, every day. So this is what happens whenever the patron scans their card. So that's accessing the next step, which is going to be your self-checkout table. So whenever they interact with the 3D scanner, it will automatically load this next step and then move them to the next point, which is checking something out. So the newest item that's going to show up at the top in green, anything below that will be added as a table. And if they happen to check out a bunch of stuff, our patron Darth Vader just wants this one item. If they happen to check out a bunch of stuff, it'll turn into a little scroll bar. So, okay. Next is they can also check their account status. So not only can they check stuff out here, they can go through and see if they have any holds waiting for them to pick up or where that status is of their holds that they have placed in pending. They can check if they have any charges or fees. We don't do fees anymore in our library, but Darth Vader's been around for a while, so there's no ones. Yeah, so if you happen to still do that, that will show up there as well. All right, we repurposed some error modals. So actually before, these errors were just at the top of the screen in the OPAC. So it just kind of turned into a blank screen and had the kind of where that missing pieces error notices like that was what it looked like. But I repurposed this into JavaScript to make it pop out because we were noticing as people were checking out, they weren't catching that. So we wanted to make it a little bit more eye-catching and block them out to see that they needed to actually interact, try again, and keep scanning. Also, I repurposed the print pop-up. So since we don't do print receipts anymore in McKinney, I repurposed this step instead. It is now kind of like a, you're done, you can walk away kind of thing. And the reason for that is because people are actually getting confused by how easy the process is. So they would scan to enter the thing, they'd scan their book, and then they'd see you scan your card again, and they were just getting caught in this loop. Oh. So this was actually one of our part-timers noticed this was happening and brought it up to me. And I said, no, we can change that and make it more of a last step for them. So now that they're alerted that they will be getting an email receipt, which is what we do automatically in our backend with Koha, and that they can basically move on. This is also following a different timeout process. So everything in this you can set in the Koha admin to time out the self-checkout. We have that at about 45 seconds, but I use a little bit of JavaScript to time this out at 10 seconds just to get it ready for the next feature. So this is kind of where all the magic happens. If you were curious about where to find it, you could follow those breadcrumbs in your Koha admin. I didn't want to get too nitty gritty with the details of the code because I wanted to be more like this is what's possible kind of thing. I'm always happy to share snippets and stuff like that or help you diagnose stuff if you wanted to do this on your own or if you have the self-checkout module and you're looking to make it more fancy. But right here I have an example of our language change. So just a little bit of CSS in there. Messing with the labels for the input bars. And then that there is our timeout on the last step of the process for that last modal that comes up. For all the modals, I had to cheat a little bit. I used that print one that's already in there. So if you just go poke around what's already in Koha, you can find where you can insert other classes and do fun stuff. It's fun cheat for you. And like I mentioned, there's some other backend stuff here. So these are all kind of more toggle, drag and drop kind of just set your preferences on what they want to log in with the card number, when you want to time it out, whether or not you want to show that receipt, stuff like that. So once you dig into this backend, it's pretty self-explanatory. I want to share some stats on how we did. We've been running this, like I said, for about 3 years now. Yeah, so this is last year's stats. They've been about the same yearly on average. But at our John and Judy Gay location, we have about 69.9% of all checkouts are going through these machines. We've actually eliminated our staff circ desk checkouts. So we have no more actual PCs at our staff. It's only these patron facing ones. If there's an exception, we can take it in the back room and do it for them, but it's only 3.29% of what we've needed to do so far. That's mainly curbside calls, which are very rare, and exceptions, like if they have a block and we still want them to be able to check out for the day, we'll go do that in the back room. And then at home, we had a little bit less, but it was 26.79% of all of our circ for the year went through their checkouts. So they have, like I mentioned, 4 machines, we have 5. And because each of them has their own staff user, we've been able to run these compared to each other. Super helpful if you want to decommission one, switch things around, move it to another location, whatever. You could decide whichever one is most used and plug that one into a different one if you needed to. I want to mention the cost because, like I said, this is far cheaper. So we got away just less than $2K on this. That was including all that hardware that I mentioned before. And where you would find now a tabletop unit might cost you $15K or more. So it's about 87% savings on each machine. Some takeaways. It's been very well received by patrons. You get a lot of that was easies from older people, which wasn't hard. We have a couple lower down for kids, and they love that. They love to interact with it. The RV makes some beeping noises, and I guess they like that. It's maintainable and adaptable. So if we wanted to do more fun stuff, we've already done a lot, as you can tell. But if as we grow and we have more ideas, we can do that most of the time in-house. It strengthens our image. So we're trying to expand all of our OPACs, lab computers, all to have a solidified image. And this definitely accomplished that, while also standing out as its own unit. So when you walk up to this thing, you know for sure it's a self-checkout station. And then there's room for expansion. So as we grow, we have one of the fastest growing communities in the US, and our patronage is always expanding on top of that. So as we grow, if we ever want to add more self-checkouts, we can do that without breaking the bank. Some suggestions. A lot of this is browser dev tools. You're going to want to poke around what you already have in Koha and find classes and IDs for what you want to customize. One thing I will mention that I was told right off the bat, don't use any general classes like Bootstrap, or once I use Navbar and broke everything. Which brings me to my next one, use a test server. So not at first, this wasn't all that important when nobody had eyes on it, but as we rolled it out and it was public, I didn't want to be making those kind of changes on the live site. So spin up a test server. We originally did this with our IT department. It was hosted on our city website, but you can also, what we've recently done is put it on like a little Raspberry Pi, so you can have it locally. So now we have one for each location that we can experiment with. And it's fairly easy to do and free. So even if you're not using Koha yet, I would recommend you do that. Dedicated team. So like I mentioned, how we kind of outsource to add slides. We've got a lot more eyes on the project now, which has given us more ideas on how to improve it. So we're not just talking to patrons about it, we're talking to frontline staff about it and seeing what they think we could improve on. Also, just being able to edit it, like I wasn't able to get in there quick enough when it was just HTML slides for the images. Programming department had that first. So it's good to have their hands in this project so they can keep that up to date, and it takes it off of the systems team to have to do that. And then the last, take advantage of your open source community. We are on Slack, we're on the Bugzilla, so if something goes wrong, you can see if someone's already working on it. Which has helped me a lot. If you can reach out, like Lucas here helps me with the error messages and traversing the DOM to find whatever classes I need to edit that because they didn't exist already. So think outside the box. Yeah. All right. So that's pretty much it. That's my contact information there if you want to reach out later, but I have plenty of time for questions now.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And if I haven't introduced myself, I'm Christopher Brennan. You said you cleaned up the desktop quite a bit. You took keyboards and mice away. So are people able to use the touchscreen to enter in their card if they don't have a physical card with it?
So what we're doing instead, we have that barcode set in the staff end of Koha. So if they don't have their card with them, they can ask us the desk. We can pull up their little barcode that's in the notes section and scan them in with our iPads. Since we don't have computers behind the start desk anymore, we've mainly just gone to iPads for helping us staff members. We have all that. Also, we've got our digital cards, so most people have the app now.
Okay, we had a question over here.
You have a wish list of things that you feel are missing that can't be added, or that you're planning to add and can't be added because Koha isn't doing it?
Yeah, kind of, yes. So what we're working on now is being able to scan it with driver's license. So as this is currently, if they were to scan a driver's license, because some of our neighboring libraries do that, and they get confused and think that we do too. If they were to scan their driver's license, it'll just go blank, completely blank. So we want to work on that ability to start implementing that. and probably gonna be using your plugin a little bit to help them sign up with their driver's license and then somehow figuring out how to convert that to a library card to scan them in that way. What was the other thing? Oh, batch checkout. So we've got it up now to about 5 items for batch checkout, but we'd like to be able to do more if we can in the future. So those are kind of some things that we're working on.
So you can get it to do stack processing then?
Well,
When you say fast check, what do you mean?
so like, if someone wanted, right now it's place one at a time on the pad kind of thing. If someone wanted to just pile on 20 books, it will only get up to 5 of those. Yeah.
I mean, they're almost.
My name is Brandon Lawler from Clarence, in Massachusetts. Have you used the self check-in module at all, or how do you manage the check-in?
We haven't, we have an AMH machine, so, and a smart bin at our other locations, so it's mainly going through that right now to check in. So it's kind of sort of self check-in, but really all they're doing is dropping it into the slot. There's nothing to interact with on your end, sir.
I am Mary from Bedford, and we're only about 47 miles away. And I just want to know what kind of magic that you've made that your patrons are okay with getting an email receipt, because we have patrons who don't have email.
Oh, yeah, you're right, it is a little bit of Jedi.
Yeah.
No, they've been pretty receptive for the most part. We've had a couple of grumpy patrons at first, but honestly, this debuted right in the COVID era. So this actually helped us open up for COVID earlier than we could have. And we kind of just used the excuse, we don't do print receipts because of the germs. So it's working. If they absolutely need a print receipt, like if they throw a fit and absolutely want one, we can go in the back room and print it out right there. But for the most part, they don't really ask for that. They're pretty relieved that it just goes to the inbox. Yeah.
Any other questions?
There's a question back here.
Okay.
Is your code available somewhere? Like,
Yeah, we've got it on GitHub. If you want something specific, I can help you find a snippet for that. It's a little messy.
Maybe we can put it through our notes.
Yeah.
There are a couple of online comments. Kendall Purser says, score another one for JavaScript. And then he also recommends stick to IDs if you can, classes get messy.
Yes.
This is the important comment though. Your boss says, way to go, Kellie. So